Good evening. I'm Marilyn Cargill, Vice President for Financial Aid Services at VSAC, and I would like to welcome you to tonight's presentation, VSAC Shows You How. Tonight, we're talking about college savings plans, how they work, and what our state offers to Vermonters. I see our poll questions are on the screen. Your answers will help tonight's presenter tailor his remarks to focus on the areas important to you. Please go ahead and answer those if you haven't already. As you may know, the financial aid formulas are based on an underlying principle. The family has the primary responsibility for paying for their children's education to the extent that they are able. This is a really critical foundational piece of financial aid. And what it means is every family is expected to contribute to their own children's education to their most ability. Families use a number of strategies to pay for their children's education, including savings, current income, financial aid, and borrowing. And as we all know, when you save, time and interest are on your side, they help you. When you borrow, time and interest cost you more money. Our expert tonight will show you just how much a difference these two methods can make in what a family or student will have to pay depending on what route they take. Tonight's expert will also talk with you about a number of topics concerning the college savings plans, including what exactly are these plans, who can use them, how do they work, what benefits do they offer, and how do they impact financial aid. One of the best reasons to join a live webinar is to ask questions of the expert. To raise questions from the Zoom presentation, you can type your question directly into the Q&A section. If you're watching tonight from the Facebook platform, just type your question into the comments. We also plan to have time at the end of the presentation for any additional questions that you might have. Let's get started tonight by meeting our presenter. Rich Westman is the manager in charge of VSAC's College Savings Plan, Vermont 529. Rich was part of the VSAC team that designed the program back in 1999. Rich left VSAC in 2009 to become the state tax commissioner. He returned in 2014 and has been helping Vermont families to save for college ever since. Rich may look familiar to some of you as he also serves as the senator from Lamoille County, where he lives on the farm his family has owned since 1959. Rich, thank you so much for joining us. Can we see the poll responses before we get started? Oh, great. So Rich, you've got a mix of all of the ages that you would expect, except 6 to 12. About half of the people already are saving using a 529 plan, so they're at least somewhat familiar with it. And the rest are waiting to figure this out. So a really nice mix. So Rich, let me turn this over to you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And thank you for having me on to talk about this tonight. So we're going to be talking about saving for college or training with a 529 plan. And I think it's really important to stress that this is not just for higher education, college and university. This is for training programs also. In Vermont, there are programs for hairdressing school, there are programs for welding school. These plans are quite flexible in the way that you can use these plans. They, anything that is financial aid eligible at the federal level, you can use a 529 plan. So the topics we'll be covering tonight: why save for college or training, what is a 529 plan, myths and benefits of 529 savings, how does Vermont's plan, VT 529, benefit Vermonters, getting started with a 529 plan, how to fill out an application, common questions, and how to maximize your 529 savings with gifting, because gifting is becoming more and more important in our society with things like GoFundMe page. And we'll be here to answer any questions that you as individuals might have. Why save for college or training? There have been lots of studies done. There are one national organization and one national website. Savingforcollege.com is the website. I would encourage anyone to go to that website. Or there's a website for the College Savings Plan Network, which is a division of the National State Treasurers Association. But they have contracted and done work, and a lot of work has been done by Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. And what they found is studies show that families who save even small amounts are 3 times more likely to attend and 4 times more likely to complete college. One of the people that works at Washington University in St. Louis, and her name is Jacqueline Williams, has said this: I've learned that if families are not preparing for college financially, they're probably not preparing in other ways as well. That's one of the reasons 529 plans are exciting. They focus both the mind and money on college. And it's important to focus on college as we move into this, because as we often say at VSAC, there is a correlation in a lot of the data between earnings in your adult life and your education. What is a 529 plan? Well, here's some of the basics. And I encourage you to look at the note at the bottom. This is an investment plan. So you put your money in. It's not insured, but depending on, as we'll talk about later, which option in the way you save, there are some that are safer and some that aren't. But I encourage you to remember this is an investment plan, very much like your retirement plan would be. The basics. Financial vehicle which leverages investments to save for higher education. When we talk about 529 plan, we talk really about a section of the IRS code, which was created in the 1990s. And it was specifically created by Congress to encourage states to help middle-class families save, and for the correlation between the financial aid process and that. A lot of people didn't like the fact that saving would hurt them to get financial aid in the future. So these plans were developed with that in mind. There are today 49 states and the District of Columbia that all have plans, and even the one state, Wyoming, that doesn't have a plan has teamed up with Colorado to do that. And these plans have now, most states have been around since the late 1990s. 30 states put 529 plans in place between 1996 and 2000. Vermont, we took our first contribution into a plan in 1999, so we were one of those 30 states. The general benefits of these plans. The federal and state are tax-free earnings and tax-free withdrawals on these plans. Most states have a state tax deduction. Vermont's one of 3 states with a tax credit. Our tax credit is one of the richest state benefits in the country. There are low minimum contributions, $25 in our case. There are high maximum contributions. Our plan has a total contribution limit of something well over 300,000. The use of the dollars is very flexible, and there is favorable treatment for financial aid as determined when filling out the FAFSA. Saving and financial aid. A common concern of people, and I hear this when I'm out in schools and all over the place, is that if I save for college, it will hurt my child's chances at financial aid if you save too much. What I would like to stress in this is that depends on somewhat on how you save. 529 plans, Coverdale accounts, which we won't cover tonight, are designed in the tax code to minimize any hurt that saving would have. So they are a preferred way to save by most financial advisors in the country. 529 plans are generally considered the asset of the owner of the account, not the student. The student is named as a beneficiary. That's very important point. When Marilyn in her opening talked about the financial aid process, what these plans were designed to do is not have them as an asset of the student when the student fills out the FAFSA form. It was designed to have it in someone else's name. So that's really important. And for those of you that are grandparents tonight, or if there's an aunt and uncle or someone out there listening, your name never shows up on the FAFSA form, so the asset never shows up on the FAFSA form when they fill that form out at the beginning of their going to school. So that's the preferred way. Federal financial aid formulas dedicate 20% of a student's asset towards college or training. What that means is if you have a bill, automatically, if they have an asset in the student's name, they reduce your aid by that 20%. They dedicate a much smaller proportion to a parent. It's 5.64% per year or up to that amount. Depending on your income, it can be a little lower, but for it's up to 5.64% towards a student's college or training. And I repeat, if you're someone other than the parent that owns the account for the student, because there's no line on the FAFSA form, that savings doesn't get entered on the FAFSA form for them. So it is a preferred way to help you with the financial aid process. Saving for college and other things like retirement. I commonly hear when I'm out talking to people in the public, I'm going to put all of my savings into retirement. I'm going to put all of my financial effort into other areas. I should focus on my own retirement first. I hear that all the time. Here's the facts. The financial aid system expects a parent to contribute to funding their child's college or training as you go forward. For many parents, this means they will be paying for college when they are also trying to fund their own retirement. If you're someone that's in your 50s, when you should be contributing the most to your own retirement, if you haven't taken care of trying to save for what it really becomes, both retirement and a house and saving for college. These are life cycle of expenditures. These are life cycle events. If you haven't thought about these life cycle events in coordination with each other and worked on that, it is a balancing act that you're going to have to do. For those of you with a financial advisor, you should talk to your financial advisor as you go through this process and you work around through this. But you're going to have to be a participant in your child's college education. You're going to have to fund your own retirement. You're going to have to do those things like buy a home or pay for your housing. It is important for you to balance all of those efforts as you go through, and a 529 plan will help you.
Rich, we do have a question.
Perfect.
So this, someone has written to you, what if you are the parent? Do you have to disclose the 529 asset?
You as a parent have to disclose the 529 asset, but what they do is through a formula reduce the effect that has on the ability of the family to pay for that college. It will be technically someplace between 3% and that 5.64% that it will affect the overall calculation for financial aid. If that's why I stress, if you're a grandparent, if you're a friend, if you're an aunt and an uncle, if you're someone other than the parent or the student that it owns the asset, it doesn't show up on the FAFSA form. But for a parent, you do have to report it on the FAFSA form.
Thank you, Rich.
How 529 plans savings can grow over time. As we all know, when you save, there is interest on those savings. So we give you some examples. Even small amounts can add up over time. And it's never too late or too early to start saving. Consider this. We give the example here of a 1-year-old, and at $75 a month from the time they're 1 year old, you can save up to $24,041. If you deposit $50 a month, that's $16,000 and change. If you do $25 a month, that's $8,000. Think of it, think if $2,945 isn't worth saving. If you had to borrow $2,945, you could pay more than $1,050 in interest. Money you could use for other expenses like books. And I might say what we base this whole chart on is the current parent plus loan rates at 6.2% over a 10-year repayment. Saving versus borrowing, and this is our illustrated example. If you put away $50 a month at age 1 and contribute until age 18, you'll have put away $10,200. This amount will grow over time depending on the rate of return of your investment. In this example, the $10,200 could earn $5,828 at a 5% rate of return, making $16,028 available to go to college. If you had to borrow $16,028, you would pay $5,825 in interest at the current parent plus loan rate. That's 6.2% that we showed you in the last chart. The total cost of borrowing equaling $21,853. So you can see the difference between having interest work for you versus borrowing and having to pay back that interest over time. It's very important in these life cycle events to get a jump on. These are things that are lifelong expenditures and things that you need to think about as balanced in your retirement, your housing and your home, and the next generation in your family's college expenses and education expenses. What can a 529 plan savings be used for? They are a number of qualified expenses, and they're quite varied. Generally, what I say out in public to people is anything that the institution of education that your student is going to, that they deem necessary, you can use. So, for example, we all would automatically think of tuition, we all think of fees, we all think of books, we all think of supplies. Room and board, you know, if your student gets a scholarship to go to school, they will still probably have room and board. So even families that get tuition paid through scholarships will have expenses. I use as an example, when I'm out in the public, CCB. The Community College of Vermont, if you have a student that's going there, if you ask the financial aid office at CCB, how much would you estimate room and board is for our student? They will send you a letter. They will give you an amount that they consider a fair amount to cover room and board. And you can use these plans for up to that amount with that letter for their and considered as college expenses. So it's quite flexible around it. I will say in that case, you want to hang on to the letter from CCV, because if you ever get audited, you would have to produce the letter. The other example I use is a lot of programs for people that take classes abroad, or people take science classes. I know of one case, someone came to me and their student was doing a science project on the North Shore of Alaska. The travel expenses for those things are also eligible, as long as you can get the school to give you documentation to say it is, and in most cases, school will. What's an eligible institution? I have a lot of people say, can you only use a 529 plan, the Vermont 529 plan in Vermont? No, you can use it any place that is Title IV financial aid eligible at the federal level. And that means in the US or abroad, in state, out of state, private schools, state schools, trade schools, technical schools, and even graduate schools. So they can be used in a very flexible way, all the way across the board. And you should talk to your school about what is eligible for qualified expenses. And you can go online and check to see what Title IV eligible schools are. And we can help you with that at VSAC, figure that out. I quite commonly get questions and refer them to our financial aid people for that help. How does the Vermont 529 plan benefit Vermonters? The VT 529 or VHYPE, and we've been moving towards VT 529 as the official name for the plan, was started by the legislature in the late 1990s. As I said, we took our first account in December of 1999. Over 800 million has been used by or is in present savings by people with our plan now to help them get ready and to go to college. We presently in our plan have just under 600 million in assets within the plan, and we are seeing lots of growth in our plan. as we move forward. Vermont has, as I said earlier, a state tax credit. Many states have a deduction, and a deduction will take what you contribute, deduct it from your income up in the tax form. What ours tax credit does is, and when you figure your taxes, 10%. I would submit for any investment, it's very hard the
Rick,
minute.
I'm sorry to break in, but you froze for a few minutes. So the last thing that we were able to hear you say is that 10% of that investment, or 10% of the first 2,500, but the explanation after that we did not hear.
Okay, so let me just start over with that piece.
Thank you.
10% of, I am, so we have a tax credit. Up to the first 2,500 you contribute, 10% of that amount can be subtracted off from what you owe in Vermont taxes each year. And it's for each beneficiary. So if you open 2 accounts, you can do 2,500 in each individual account and subtract up to 250. If you do $1,000 in an account, it's $100. For couples married filing jointly, the amount is 5,000, and you can subtract 500 often per beneficiary for a married couple filing jointly. And it's very different than a deduction, which most states have, that is up in the tax form, where you subtract often what your income is. This is, we subtract often what you owe. So it's a huge benefit to say that immediately when you put money in, you're going to make 10%.
So Rich, asking if you could go back one slide.
Yep.
If someone had 2 children in school,
Yes.
married couple filing jointly,
Yep.
they put $5,000 into each of those accounts, is that $1,000 deduction that they can take because it's a married couple? They put in 10,000 and they had 2 children?
That's correct. It's per account, per beneficiary. As you can see in the chart, I don't know if you can see my area. It's per beneficiary per year. And that's every year you can do that. So you automatically make 10% on your money with multiple children in multiple accounts. To open account, here's what you'll need, because quite frequently I hear from people, is the application form difficult? Is it hard? What do I need to do? Can I do it online? Can I do it in paper? You can do all of this online. We encourage people to do it online, but if people get stuck, they can always contact us here at VSAC, and we would help them with a paper application. But it's very simple to do it online. What you'll need as the owner of the account is you need your full name. You need, as the owner of the account, you need your social security number. You need your birth date of the owner of the account. You need a permanent address, and what your permanent address is, no PO box. You have to have your permanent address. You need a primary phone number, and you need a daytime phone number. If you don't have the daytime phone number and you have just permanent, you do that, but they're going to ask for both. you need bank account, and you need the routing number for your bank. If you want to fund initial deposits from checking or savings, or to set up the account automatically, you can make just a single contribution to open an account, and you don't need the bank information. But if you decide that you are going to make that that single contribution from your bank account or your savings account, or you're going to do something once a month, once a week, once a quarter, or once a year, you're going to need bank information to do that. That's not a must when you start this, but it's good to have that if you're going to start. What you need for the beneficiary, and I get this with a lot of grandparents that go to open account. They know their grandchild's full name. They don't know their social security number. So if you're a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, or someone other than the parent, you need that social security number per beneficiary. You need the date of birth for each of your grandchildren. Rarely, but every once in a while, I get a grandparent or an aunt or uncle that comes in, oh, I forgot the birthday. So you're going to need the birth date. Then you need the mailing address and the phone number of the beneficiary. Those are the basic information for the account owner and the beneficiary that you need. The next thing that comes up, and what you see is pop-ups all around the screen. This is information that you'll find on our website that explains each of the investment options. This is the place that most of the people that we deal with have trouble. And this is where people start the form and then they go, well, I don't understand what the investment types are. And they stop filling out the form and people have the most problem. So let me talk a little about this. This is about,
I'm sorry,
yes.
but before you get into investment options, there's a question that I think should come before that. Can
Okay.
this be set up as an auto withdrawal pre-tax from my Vermont employer, like an FSA account?
No, it can be, we have payroll deduction if you're a state employee, and if your business has payroll deduction for the plan, and there are a number of businesses that do, you can have it deducted from your check. You can have it deducted from your savings account. You can have it deducted out of your checking account, and that will be done on whatever basis you want it done, annually, semi-annually, monthly, weekly, however you set that up, that can be done. But this is after-tax money. So it's not pre-tax money. Very much what happens now is after you make the contribution, you get a tax credit. And what you would be doing, I think from, it's after taxes. So you pay the tax and it's after tax in the contribution. The credit gives you something back for having done that. So it makes up for that. And so it's a little different than something that's pre-taxed.
So Rich, it's the money that's earned on the account itself, the interest that's earned on the account is tax-free, but not
Yes.
the dollars that are put in.
That's correct. The interest on the money is tax-free and will never be taxed as long as you use it for some education. So let's get back to our investment options. So what you see is we have 6 ways to invest, and they are all based upon your risk. What we really have here is two types of investments that are very aggressive. We have two types that you would consider moderate, and we have one very conservative investment type. And then we have an investment type, managed allocation, which I will say is the most commonly selected of our investment types. It's more like the retirement plan, and about 60% of everyone, or a little over 60%, select managed allocation. This is kind of the set it and forget it type investment. And it goes from very aggressive, when the child is young, to conservative as that student gets older and closer to the time that it's used. So we have a moderate, which is a balanced portfolio is moderate, and the fixed income option is moderate. And I say moderate because 61% of the balanced portfolio is stock and equities, and 39% is fixed income funds. So it is bonds and those types. So they balance out and those become the moderate. The most conservative that we have is principal plus interest, which is invested in as a TIAA product, and a rate of return is promised by TIAA, backed up by its insurance plan. That's why when we say this is an investment plan, you can, if you choose something that's aggressive, but that depends on where the economy is, what your risk tolerance is, you get to pick between these. For those of you that have a financial advisor, you should talk to your financial advisor. For those of you that want to do this ourselves, we have lots of information on our website. You should look at that website before you try to fill out the application form, and based upon your own tolerance, you should make a choice. So other common 529 questions we get. What if the child, my child doesn't go on to school? Well, these plans are very flexible in the fact that just because you chose a beneficiary of the plan doesn't mean that it always has to be the same beneficiary. You can change it to other students in the family. If you're a parent that opens an account and someplace years later, you have to go back to your school, you have to go back to a training program or school yourself, you can swap your child out for yourself. It's very flexible about who can be named as beneficiary. Just remember also, there's no time limit on any of this. So because there's no time limit on any of this, the money could sit there and even wait for next generation if you chose to do that and you had that option. But so there are a number of ways that these can be used. Can also be used for graduate school. So if one student, you have multiple students in the family, you can change out and as someone goes to graduate school. So it's very flexible. If you don't use all the money, or the child doesn't go, the money in the account can be taken out with a 10% penalty, and you have to pay the tax on the money that you earned on the interest on that money. But I also would say to you that over time, if you're earning interest on money that you didn't pay tax on while it was in the account, that is a benefit, and you might very well make more interest on the money if you keep the money in there for a long time than you had for interest. I only say that you can get the money out. There is a penalty. What happens if I need to withdraw the funds for non-qualified expense? Well, we just covered that in that you can take the money out and you have to pay tax on the interest earned and you pay a 10% penalty.
Rich, we do have another question.
Awesome.
This person says, I'm expecting my first child. I could open, so are you saying I could open an account, list myself as the beneficiary until the child is born, and then change it to that child's name? And if
Absolutely.
you want, okay, perfect. Are there any penalties or costs to making that change?
None. There is time limits. You can only do one change like that in a year, but you can certainly open the account in your name and change it out for the child after the child is born. So in our society now, gifting is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. You know, I think all of us have either heard of a GoFundMe page or had someone send something to us requesting contributions. And you can participate in that at whatever level you want. You can open an account for a beneficiary that's not your own child. You can contribute to an existing account if you have the account information, and you can do that by check. And I would say a lot of people do that now. So the grandparents open an account, and a parent would like to contribute to the grandparents' account. As long as they have the account numbers, they can contribute to that account. The person making the contribution can also take the tax credit even though they don't own the account. What you can't do is the owner of the account and the contributor both can't take the tax credit at the same time. You can only one individual or one whoever is making the contribution or the owner of the account can take that credit, but you can't both take it at the same time. For account owners, invite others to give a gift via e-gifting. We have an e-gifting function with our website and with our accounts, and you should check that out. We encourage people to think about a holiday's coming or it's a birthday. I do this, have done this for my nieces. I do this for my partner's grandchild. I now, on her birthdays, contribute to her 529 plan. It's a great way to give a gift that is not just another stuffed toy. And it's a great way to get more members of the family involved in what is really a life cycle expenditure for families. We also have gift cards, and you can purchase a gift card off the rack at Kenny Drugs and at Cumberland Farm locations now.
Rich, one more question.
Good.
Is the 10% penalty for withdrawal on the original deposit or the full amount withdrawn including earnings?
The original deposit, because it's after tax, you have already paid tax on. It's only on the interest of the money. You know, you only pay interest on a penalty on the interest earned.
So the answer to that question is it's none of the things that is being asked here. It's not on the original deposit or the amount withdrawn. It's on the amount of interest that is being impacted by that withdrawal.
Yeah, that's correct. So this is college. Sorry. I am very sorry. So this is College Savings Month. We encourage you to go to our website and see. We have a drawing contest, and we would encourage you to go to our website, check it out. We have prizes, and we will make contributions to plans with prizes, and we encourage you to check out our drawing, and this is all part of College Savings Month, this webinar that we're putting on now. Our contact information here is here. My contact information is westman@vsac.org. The 800 number goes to our call center, and we would encourage you to go to our website, email us, call us at our website, or if you'd like to contact me directly, I'd love to hear from you at westman@vsac.org.
Rich, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So in the next few days, VSAC will be sending out an email that has this presentation of recording of this presentation attached to it to all of our registrants. So you will get a copy directly. We will also be posting this on the VSAC website as well as the VSAC Facebook page. Our next event is coming up October 26th, when we'll be talking about how to fill out the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. So the other end of this conversation. This evening, we're talking about saving for college, and our next conversation will be how to pay for the students who are actually starting college. If you could just take one moment to answer our closing poll, and then if there are any other questions that you would like to ask, we do have some time available for that. All right. I don't see any more questions coming in. Rich, again, I really want to thank you for spending your evening with us and helping us learn a lot more about college savings plans and how they work. Great. So the majority of people got their questions answered. For those of you who say it helped, but you still have questions, please don't hesitate. Either call the toll-free number that's on the screen, or reach out to Rich or to our info@vsac.org. We'd be very happy to help you.
I look forward to questions.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone.